Aloha and welcome back to the season review episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. The podcast where two dudes from halfway around the world talk everything green and gold. I'm Mike. That's Iowa Joe. Joe, the end has come for the 2023 Packers. How are you doing today?
In my pessimistic way, I was expecting it. But for them, I tweeted this out after the game. It wasn't that the 49ers won, it was the Packers lost. Because for all their faults in the world, the Packers were making the stupid mistakes that were costing them the game. Jordan kind of regressed. LaFleur, as you like to put it, kind of turtled when it came to some of the play calling. The defense was doing defense things again. I know a lot of, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but I know a lot of people are going after Anders, and I will get into it because he's not. This is the funny thing. Ever since he started kicking this year, towards the later part of the season, I've stopped watching the actual kick, and I started watching more of the operation, because it's like, this kid's going to kick whatever he's going to kick, but at least we can see if it's actually him or if it's the operation. And like I said, we'll get into that a little bit more later, but overall, the fan side of me is disappointed because they could have easily won the game. The pessimistic side of me is like, yeah, okay, that's fine. This just goes to show that, hopefully this shows that Joe Barry needs to be shown the door and we get us a competent defensive coordinator in, because this defense has all the tools to be able to shut down the likes of the 49ers and the Cowboys and so on and so on. But on top of that, I do want to take a moment and say congratulations to Detroit fans, all 20 of you or whatever there is, because they did advance to the championship round. Hopefully you can do what the Packers couldn't and take out the 49ers. I would imagine the world is going to end the next day as soon as they make it if they make it to the Super Bowl. So enjoy it while it lasts, because who would have ever thought this was ever going to happen? But as we've stated on here several times, we both kind of dig what Dan Campbell is. I mean, yeah, is he a blowhard? Yeah. But he's a type of coach that players will rally around. And we can see that on the Packers side where, yeah, they like to say, yeah, we love this coach, we love that coach, but you can kind of tell they're not really rallying around again, Joe Barry or certain guys like that. I mean, they're all in it for LaFleur, but it seems like there are some guys on that coaching staff that they're not playing for. But like I said, overall disappointment, but then again, not disappointment, because it does look like we're in good hands going forward for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's kind of it too. It's kind of funny that this team played above its head for about a month, and then in the end, all the things that you kind of worry about with a young, inexperienced team, with a DC that you don't trust and a kicker that you not sure what he really is, all those things kind of bubbled up to the top in this NFC Championship game. And I don't know. For me, it felt like this team was kind of just looking and hoping the clock would run out fast enough while they still had a lead. I really thought they had it when Jones broke the 53-yard run. I thought that was going to be the thing that would give them the shot in the arm to get over the hump.
Question for you.
Yeah.
If Aaron Jones played the full season healthy, no kind of lingering injuries or anything like that, does he get a touchdown on that run, or do you think he just doesn't have the speed to get the touchdown on the run?
I think it's just he doesn't have the long speed. I think it. In all honesty, I don't know if he makes that run if he plays the whole season, because this whole last month or whatever 5 weeks that he's been on, this is what happens when he got fresh legs. He looks like he's coming out at the beginning of the season kind of thing, and that's why we'll get into this as we go into the off season. But short note of it is, I think you keep Jones, and you just gotta shore up the backup running back options around him. I think whether it's Dylan comes back cheap, whether it's you bring in, I do think you got to bring in a couple more bodies and stuff, but I do think that's more just Jones isn't really the guy who's going to take a run 75 yards unless he's like that Detroit one he had in 2020 where he passed everyone within the first 12 yards kind of thing. But that one, San Fran had like two guys deep on him, and he actually did a pretty impressive job weaving his way through. And I thought if he kept it close, because Watson was trying to get over there, and I thought maybe if he was a little closer to Watson, to start with, if he hadn't. And this is awesome, man. There's no way you can tell Jones, like, don't try to wide into the other sideline or anything like that. But I thought there was a chance for Watson to get out there if Jones was a little closer to him, and maybe he's able to, spring it for another 10 to 15 yards or something. But I think that was the maximum number of yards you were going to get out of that play. I don't think there was much more to it. But
well, the only reason I ask is because even though he did quote unquote have the fresh legs and all that, it looked like you could kind of tell he doesn't have the seasoning because there at the end he started to kind of trail off just a touch.
And I think
And
you got to remember is he ran 53 like up the field, but he also ran at least 2/3 of the field sideways on that play because he starts from under center. It's a toss to the left, and then he bends it back right. Yeah, so in total, by the time he's getting even like right before when he like cuts it back inside that one final time, he's run about 100 yards at that point.
right.
So and he's changing speeds and changing direction kind of thing. So I don't. It would be he would have needed to be a different person to score. I think on that play, you need someone with 4.4 or better speed than not. And yeah, I don't think that really is a matter of like, was he fresh if he's rolling the whole season kind of thing. I honestly think you don't get that run, like I said, if he's played the whole season because his his legs are a little more shot, just the wear and tear of the whole season and stuff. So maybe if that run happens earlier in the game, you get a little bit different result. But because that's touched like 20 for him at that point of the game, that's kind of where you're at too at that point. So it's not it's like I said, I thought it was more one of those like that's the play that everyone's been looking for someone to make kind of thing. And that's where we'll kind of get into the offense where they started out, relatively strong, couldn't fully maximize on their opportunities early in the game. You have the first 3 trips into the red zone and you come away with only 6 points. I said it at the time it happened on the opening drive, but Ambry Thomas's DPI turned out to be a winning play because that was a 4-point swing. That's definitely a touchdown in my opinion if he's not DPIing Dobbs on that play. And the second drive, just I thought they had it. I thought they also got cheated out of a couple yards by the 3 consecutive spots on that sequence. It was bad.
Let's get into that.
I don't want to bag on it because I'm a person who I only bag on referees when you win the game because I don't want it to sound like an excuse. But that near side ref, my God, he shouldn't be allowed to ref another playoff game. Ref number 113. Well, he was terrible the whole night.
We can get into it because I'm not going to say that's what cost us the game, but those spots were horrible. And
that whole sequence was terrible because. And it's not just the 4th down play. You look at, here's a little inside baseball. So not only is how they measure the yardage for a first down stupid, and I'm pretty sure this is how they do it in the NFL still, because this is how they do it in high school and college. So at the end of the quarter, how they figure out where to put the ball, because the ball changes sides of the field, right? What they do is they bring the chain gang out. One of those, there's a clip with the flyer on it. You clip it onto the nearest yard marker, and you say, okay, this is on the goal line side of the 25-yard line. I don't remember exactly where the ball was, but let's say the goal line side of the 25-yard line. and then they're like, okay, and then the ball is here, so they put, they'll mark it again, and then they take that chain and they turn it around and they put it down on the other side of the field and they mark it off. But based on how Jones got tackled on that second down play, I thought he was not a full yard away from the stick. And then he definitely gained something on the third down play. And then, but if you look at the third down play and where they snap the ball on the fourth down play, we're snapping it from a whole yard away every time. And then it got extra magnified when you have that on Green Bay's opening drive of the third quarter, where Jones clearly breaks the first down marker by a whole yard, and that ref's like, now he's short by a whole yard. And it's just like, what are you
and then
looking at the whole game?
On the not Jones, the Jordan Love sneak, it's clear as day on their friggin' first down pylon that he broke it and he never touched the ground, but they called him down. And then they reviewed it and still called him down. And so I'm not, like I said, we're not saying this is what cost the Packers the game, because there were a lot of stupid things that happened with the Packers. But as we've said, and a lot of other Packer creators have said, there needs to be something done about how they measure this stuff. They're still measuring the same way they've done for almost 100 and some odd years. You can't just, when other sports are getting into the higher tech, hell, I'm not even a tennis fan, but I know for a fact
they have the best review system.
Yeah, they can track that ball to see if it just minusculely touched the outline. If they can do that with a ball that's only about that big, can't they do one with a ball that's about that big?
That moves at 100-something miles per hour when they're serving too. So yeah,
right,
yeah. But I know it's frustrating, but the overall theme of it is Green Bay needed to do better to take better advantage of their opportunities. I thought,
and didn't they start putting chips in the ball anyway so they could track it?
I don't know. I don't remember how that went. I heard rumors of that, but I don't know how legitimate those were. But yeah, like you said, they got to do something better. But spots were just spotty all game. After the one to open where LaFleur had to challenge it to get the call correct, I was just like, so it's gonna be one of those. But Green Bay almost was able to play above it. Before the Kittle touchdown, I don't know how you missed that. Also, I don't know why that's not reviewable. Intentional grounding should be something you can challenge because, oh my God, that was a terrible miss.
That was obvious. Yeah, that was obvious grounding. And then I saw a picture today going through Twitter where it showed like all the guys on the 49ers defensive line were all lined up off sides and it wasn't called.
I saw Robin Adams one and I retweeted it and I said John Runyon Jr. has so many questions. So many questions. So
like I said, this isn't the reasons why the Packers lost, but it does contribute when you have to fight not only the 49ers but the referees and everything else into it. But let's talk about some of the stupid things that the Packers did. Obviously, the play calling wasn't up to speed like it was against the Cowboys. Jordan Love seemed like he did regress a little bit in some of his decision making. Throws weren't being made properly. You might know a little bit better than I do, but it didn't seem like a lot of the routes were being run like they should have been.
I think some of the throws and some of the routes, I think that's a lot on the weather. They have a grass field out there. I thought Green Bay was actually making better of that than the Niners defenders were, or even the Niners offense, because we were putting guys on the ground and that was how Dobbs got open on at least one of his big gains. And the wet ball, you could kind of tell on some of those long sideline throws, even the touchdown he threw to Tucker, where he kind of was trying. He's like, I know it's wet. I know guys are going to have a harder time catching the ball, and so some of his near hash to far sideline throws, you could tell Love almost took something off the ball because he didn't want to just like have it just goink off someone's hand kind of thing. So I think he got a little in his head on some of those. And then I know a few people have been putting up the middle of the field stats and all. And I do think like contributing factors to that is I think part of it is, Warner and Greenlaw. They're really rangy.
Well, I was
They're
gonna say,
tall
didn't
and
we say that in our preview that the
yeah,
middle of the field is pretty much gone because of how they play it?
yeah. And then and also their D tackles are tall too. So like
And we
and I
saw a
think
couple of those.
yeah, so I think it's kind of like the JJ Watt factor, and then also like you're trying to. I think it goes back to like what one of the early season issues for Love was is it's like trying to be perfect instead of just throwing the ball, and you like as you
Until
have
it
that
doesn't matter anymore, and then he just starts winging it, and then he gets the interceptions.
yeah. So and overall that was the big everything else. The key to the game was Purdy, and I've seen different versions of this tweeted over since yesterday, the end of the game yesterday, but Purdy couldn't stop trying to get Green Bay to take the ball away, and Green Bay wouldn't. And Love has his two bad decisions, or like off target pass and bad decision of the game, picked off. And that's your difference in the game. Like, that's it. And
Well,
it's
I'm gonna bag on
unfortunate.
him, Mike, and you're not gonna like it. I'm gonna bag on him,
No, it's
but it
yeah,
hit
you
him
can't
right
drop
in
a
the
handout
chest.
like that. Yeah, you can't drop a handout like that. And it's really unfortunate. It almost didn't matter until it mattered. And it's those little itty bitty moments in a game like this. And we're talking about the Darnell Savage play where yeah, he reads it, kind of does it's not the same play because he's not in man, but same idea as the one against Dallas where reads the play out, steps in front of the receiver. It's not a great throw again, but this time I think he, like how Kittle had that drop later in the third quarter where he's looking upfield before he catches the ball, and I think Darnell had visions of banging his head on the goalpost before he secured the catch and stuff. So that one was rough, but also the one where I think it was Valentine and Nixon where I don't know it.
If Nixon would have let it go, Valentine would have had the
But I don't
interception.
know what Nixon was doing, and then even Valentine, like, okay, I don't remember the name of the movie, but it was that is the one where Sinbad is the Secret Service agent, and he like supposed
First
to
kid.
yeah, first kid, and it's the part where he's supposed to take the bullet for the president, but he jumps the wrong way, and that's honestly what it looked like Valentine was doing in that because I didn't think Nixon tipped it that bad. I thought it kind of like went through his fingers, but and then even the 49ers final drive, you had the play where Nixon, I don't know where the hell he was jumping to, but if he just stands there and jumps, he either breaks up that pass or intercepts it, but he like runs too far forward, like lost it in the lights, and it floats right over. Because I know Olsen's like, oh, like Purdy made the exact pass he needed to. I was like, no, that was a duck. Like that was a wounded duck, and it just made it over the wicket fence because the fence moved in too far. But it's just like I said, it's just the perfect storm of young team figuring
Well,
out
and
it is
didn't
young.
was it Quay or was it Devondre that also had a drop where it like bounced off the, or it was like a tip play?
I think it was Devondre. But that one, it's like it was more he like didn't see it really, and then by the time he turned around, it kind of hit. I forget where it hit him, but I know which one you're talking about. But yeah, there were several close. There were like 5 or 6 passes where like oh like, and then Quay had the one where obviously he's not gonna play it, but like if he didn't jump when McCaffrey jumped, he might have been able to just cap under the ball because Purdy sailed it like 2 yards over McCaffrey's head. There were like 5 or 6. Like I said, Purdy was trying his damn, and it was so eerily similar to the 2021 game where Garoppolo, you know, Devondre dropped the pick six in that game. Amos did tag Garoppolo in that one, but it felt like Garoppolo wanted to throw the back-breaking interception so many times in that game in Lambeau, and Purdy was trying to do the same thing last night. And it's just a bummer because they had it and they just couldn't keep the rope in their hands last night. And I know we're bouncing around a little bit on this one, but this is kind of just our letting our thoughts fly on this game because it's just frustrating because you play a, you're, I want to say overall, it ends up being like a C grade game, but for the first like 50 minutes, they're playing a B minus B game, which, um,
Well, they were doing
it's,
everything that they needed to. They were
yep,
getting pressure on
yep.
Purdy. They were making him throw mistakes. They just weren't capitalizing on the mistakes.
And,
They
and I
were
know this is going to be
driving with
yeah, and then they're gonna be like tinfoil Hattie, but I was just like, oh my god, because even the weather conspired because it's like everyone's like, oh my god, the weather stopped raining for the 49ers final drive. And then once the Packers had to come back on the field, you could tell it was monsooning again on the final drive. So I was just like, oh, it's really gonna be one of those kind of nights and
well,
stuff. But
and
yeah,
this goes back to the mistakes Jordan was making. That last throw that was the interception should have never been thrown.
yeah, just
It
running
would
yourself or throw it out of bounds. Yep.
Yeah, he should have never tried to cross body throw across the field. Yeah, he's had a couple of them that's worked out for him, but you don't do it
That
at
one was
that
never
moment.
open. That's the only all 22 I've looked at, and because I was like, did he seize? But that one, the like middle of the field defender is just kind of hanging out in there. Christian's not really ever open on that play, and the only thing on that play, and I think it was Bukowski or Herman, one of them, they kind of screenshotted like if Jones just runs instead of trying to hook the edge defender, maybe Love just tosses it out to him kind of thing, and you see what you get. And that was my biggest frustration with the final drive is I didn't understand why they were trying to get the ball to the sideline so much because it's like you have all three of your timeouts. Use the middle of the field while you can, especially while San Fran is dropping everyone back into Sacramento. So I thought that they tried too hard to use the sideline when I'm like, just get yards wherever you can kind of thing. And those are ones where it's all part of like why you had to move to Love this season. You're not going to learn these kind of things until you play snaps. And it's just a bummer that, this is going to be one of his biggest learning experiences is, in a playoff loss. But I mean, it's frustrating because it was the epitome of a just when you start to believe the rug gets pulled out from you kind of game. But what everyone should understand is that the future is still very bright. Like you had guys who, and it was the same thing where, Dobbs had a couple of the bigger plays, but you have Bo Melton drawing a big DPI, Musgrave converting some first downs. Tucker was blocking really well again. And
Except for on what was it? Was it on the end around to Reed? He completely whiffed on a block.
yeah, that one was weird. Yeah. No, I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, the one where they're going from on the broadcast angle right to left and they ran it towards the near sideline and Reed still picked up 9, but yeah, it was like, oh, if you just clip him there, if you just
He
clip
would have
that
had
guy,
more.
yeah, Reed is probably still running. One of the plays that it's too bad that it's not going to be remembered for what it was Eric Wilson absolutely bailing out Keyshawn Nixon. Keyshawn Nixon, it was a great return, but it's like, dude, put the ball in the proper arm. And I'm so bummed. And I tweeted it out because I was like, no matter what happens, build Eric Wilson a statue because
He gets
that
another
was
contract just on that
that
play
was one of the
alone.
most insane fumble recoveries I've ever seen in my life because he comes on a dead sprint from off the camera and and it's like he was like an outfielder diving for a sinking line drive. Like he looked like Andrew Jones out there in center field coming from depth to rob a short line drive
Man,
because
Mike, we're really
he
showing our age with our references here because
hey, Andrew Jones played for fucking ever, so we're good. But
yeah, but he's
but
also like eligible for the Hall of Fame, so he's been out for a while too. So we're showing our age here.
but he caught that on the like it's not like he trapped it on the ground. He caught it when it was in midair and secured it before he went to the ground. Like that was one of the most insane plays I've ever seen in my life. And I so wish the Packers had won because I was like, man,
He'd have been
you're a legend.
MVP.
You get I said, and it might still make it in there, but I was like, if they win this game, that's a mural in the Packers Hall of Fame, like without a doubt. It's he's getting his own little, like, like the science fair section wall kind of thing and stuff, but it might
Yeah,
still
and
go up
I
there.
think he awed everybody because even
He
Burkhart
ran in between like 349ers. Like, it was
and he, like
insane.
you said, he did it at full speed. He, the focus he had was just amazing that he was able to nail it before anybody else could make a play
because
on it.
because we've all done those fumble recovery drills, and but like, you're like kind of like you're standing next to the coach as he throws the ball out there, and you're like jogging, and like you don't even really have a chance to run. You're kind of almost just jumping at the ball at that point. But like, or you do the one where like they put the like pads down and you like jump onto the pad and grab it kind of thing. But
No, the
yeah.
one that we used to do was they'd have the big tackling dummy and they'd put the football in
Oh,
there. So you'd have
yeah.
one guy hit it and the other guy recover it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But like, let's stick with the good. The O-line, I thought they played as well as they could all get, especially with
No
losing Zach
sacks.
Tom to an injury. We all had a heart attack when Rasheed Walker went into the medical tent and we saw that the mullet was warming up on the sideline.
Oh God.
But but I mean, props to Rasheed, and he had a good, on Jones's 53-yard run and a couple other outside runs. He was the guy leading the way on those plays on Jones's big run. I know everyone's
Okay,
giving props
so
to.
this is going to be kind of a facetious question, but is Nick Bosa actually any good?
But okay, so my theory on that is this. I think the 49ers scheme this season was everyone just blow up a gap this year, because before, like, you couldn't run on the 49ers, right? And Olsen kind of went into it like we did on our show, where it's like they're by yardage total, they're a good run defense, but by efficiency, yards per play, they're all middle of the pack. And you kind of saw why and that's with Fred Warner and Greenlaw like patrolling the second level and stuff. But you kind of saw why in the game yesterday, where um all those front four guys, they're all just shooting a gap, and it's all like, if you can position block them, they're out of the play. Like, so all those the pin and pull plays to the outside, even some of the zone plays, like, the defender thinks they're winning, but you're, as a blocker, you're winning because, yeah, maybe it's not the way you want him to go, but as you know, as a former O lineman, it's like, I'm just gonna take him and he's gonna go 5 yards upfield and we're past him already and he's out of the play and stuff. So or you do like that block on like a draw play where you just kind of you whack him in the back of the head or the shoulder pad, and you kind of like have him
Well,
flailing like.
and the reason why I'm asking it is because not only did he really not seem to get any pressure, but you had the guys like Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, and guys who are like half his size knocking him off of his pass rush.
And I think, and okay, so I think the difference is like, so, and it's goes into that whole aggression thing, because
Don't
you
make
look at
excuses
like,
for him, Mike. He just sucks.
but no, he's not the guy he was last year when he was like a defensive player of the year candidate. I forget who won it last season, but you look at how like he rushes versus a chip, and how like Rashawn will rush for, like, Rashawn, almost, it's like he knows it's coming, and so he's like, okay, I'm gonna hit you back too, kind of thing, when he gets chipped. Whereas Bosa, we all remember the one from 2 years ago where Tanyan just he decked him, and it's like, I think he's so like, I gotta get, he's like almost like a hyperactive puppy dog, where he's like, I gotta get the ball kind of thing, so that he's like so tunnel vision, because he's like, oh, it's a pass rush down, I get to go. That chip blocks, it's like, oh shit, like,
Yeah.
what was that kind of thing. So I think that's why they're effective against him, and Chase Young kind of to a similar extent, because I feel like they're kind of cut from the same mold. I mean, they both come from the same college program, so they have some of the same fundamentals kind of baked in. But I feel like that's partly the explanation that I have as to why they seem to struggle against chip blocks. But you couldn't, what did Green Bay end up with, like 153 rushing yards or something like that? Love didn't really get sacked too much. I know that they kind of biffed the protection on the final drive that really mattered. And that was a bummer because they had Wicks. Wicks had his guy beat, but
136.
yeah. So it's, a lot of positive on this offense. They're going to be another year better. I don't know what the Bakhtiari situation is going to be, but realistically, they're only replacing one spot on the O line next season, and that, they just got to determine, is it Ryan? Is it a draft pick at right guard? I thought Myers had a good game yesterday. I thought he really did
Well,
well
but
to.
he's not under contract, so you're saying that they're going to end up signing him?
No, Myers is right because
No,
he's got.
he was in the same. Wasn't he in the same class as, or he was in the year before Jordan, wasn't he?
No. Runyon is that, or no? So Elton was the
Runyon was
year
in
before.
this.
The same.
Runyon was in
Runyon
the
is the
same
year
as.
after, and then Myers was the year after. So he's got one more year on his rookie deal still. So,
I'm gonna look it up because I was pretty sure that he was a free agent this year
no,
too.
Runyon is the only guy, and then unfortunately Newman is also still under contract. So I hope they draft like 2 or 3 more linemen just to knock his ass off the lineup. But
Oh, he's got to be gone. There's no
yeah,
friggin' way that he can. Just like Barry, there's no friggin' way they can justify keeping him around.
yeah, and then so yeah, positives. The defense played good enough most of the game, but that's where I'll kind of leak into the negative. And it's like we said all along: is at some point
Okay,
Barry is.
he's easy to cut if because he's only due dead money. Uh, he's only due like 350,000, but if they cut him, it's like 1.4 million
Yeah.
that they save.
But I think Myers is back for another year. I think they just let him play out his contract. Hopefully he's starting, good enough to extend kind of thing. But I just don't see the point in trying to, like, you don't want to have to replace 2 linemen because, that's the thing is with this whole Ryan Runyon thing is I thought at some point it would become Ryan's job, but they never really jumped 2 feet in either way. So I'm not sure what to make of that. Um, and that's something that we'll definitely obviously get into over the off season, especially once free agency opens. We'll know within like the second week, based on where Runyon ends up. If they extend him before then, that'll kind of clear up the picture too at that point. So the good thing, like I said, is whether or not Bakhtiari's back, you're gonna have 3 or 4 of your, at least going into training camp, 4 of your starting linemen are set in one way or the other, and then it's just like, okay, is it Bakhtiari or is it Walker at left tackle, depending on what they do with Bakhtiari in the offseason. And then
My thing is I would, if Bach is back healthy and he can play, let him
oh
do
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And because this will be the last year, because it becomes easier to start cutting him or trading
yeah,
him after this year.
yeah, exactly. So I have that same belief too, is that you just ride it out, you hope for the best, and if it is good and everything checks out, you talk about the future. But if not, it's like we both sides tried. It's just a bummer how these last 4.5 years have gone for him. But
Well, no, this would
that's
be the last year for Bakhtiari anyway.
oh no, that's what I'm saying because he had a 4-year extension, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So that's what I'm saying is like it's a bummer how that road has gone the past. Like if at the end of next season it's like it's toast. It's this last procedure didn't do it. So then you kind of just shut the door on that part. And I
But
hate
I think
saying
he's
that,
the
but
type of guy that if he knows it's done,
yeah,
he'll be done.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
that's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, that's
And I'm
why,
just saying because from the Green Bay's point of view, it's like we're either giving him another contract opportunity because it looks like he's still got it, or your contract's up. David, we love you. We're gonna bring you back. You're gonna make the Packers Hall of Fame once you're done playing, but we gotta move on at this point. And they'll have
Then he
another
can go
year of
with
Walker under
the
contract and stuff. Yeah.
moron in New York or whatever if he wants to.
But so, you know, both of these playoff games against the 49ers with Barry have been the same story. The defense makes some plays, keeps the offense in the game, makes the game competitive and stuff. But, and, as much as Anders needs to make that kick, Barry's defense could make a stop anywhere along the lines of that 69-yard touchdown drive they give up.
Or,
But
quit relying on the kicker and score points on offense.
yeah,
That's the other thing to do. So let's just go ahead with the Anders thing. Because that's all I'm seeing right now are these people on Twitter, oh, he needs to be cut. If he's back next year, we're in trouble and it's all his fault and stuff like that. When I watched it, and I don't know if you watched any of the all 22 on it yet, I watched the operation. This you have
it's in Whelan's
Whelan.
lap,
Yeah, it pretty much hits Whelan in his
in his crotch.
kneeling leg,
Yeah.
and he has to grab it and bring it back up, and it just threw everything off.
And he almost, and like I said, and I tweet it
It
all the
wasn't even
time.
that bad of a miss. It wasn't like
Yeah.
he sent it to San Francisco Bay.
Yeah.
You
No, it
know,
just, like I said, the wind didn't want to blow it in, whatever you want to call it. Like, the irony is, I think if the field goal is 5 yards shorter or 5 yards longer, because the ball is doing this a little bit, it's in because it would have been on it. It would have been leaning right at the time it would have passed the upright. So it's just one of those that it's like, yes, I know that you want to see him bang some of those opportunities through because, yeah, like you need your kicker to do that. But at the same time, it's like, you already have this kicker who's coming in with a bunch of flaws in his game that
the same
besides
thing we've
trying to
said
hire.
all year.
Yeah. And I know that that people don't want to hear like, oh, like he's a professional now. He shouldn't need it to be perfect. I'm sorry. Like, did any of us, when all of us tried to learn how to ride a bike, if you hit a divot in the road, if you hit a piece of gravel, if you hit the crack between the sidewalk bricks, didn't we all fall down because we were like, oh my God? Like,
Well, not just that, but it's the same ones who are saying that they should have just kept Mason.
yeah,
How many other opportunities did Mason have this year?
yep,
2, maybe 3, I think. That tells you that he's not what he used to be. And then the opportunities he was getting, he wasn't doing very good at. Now, I love Mason like the rest of you, but he's toast. There's nothing left.
yep.
And I'm going to say it. I think he misses it too.
Because I think his leg is kind of shot, and so he's trying to overkick
I
to
don't know if it's
compensate kind of thing.
necessarily the leg, but it could be the back. Because remember, he had the back
Yeah, that
surgery.
too. Because you saw, I know he made one after it, but you saw the kick that would have beat the Rams earlier in week like 16 or 17, and I know it was like 10 yards farther than this one, but you can tell he's like, I gotta put everything I've got into this thing, and he kicks it to the corner of the end zone. Like it wasn't even on the screen when the ball bounced, kind of thing. So like that's a whole different bag of a can of worms that you're dealing with there. So um they should bring in competition in the off season, but
Now it's
even
safe to say to bring in competition.
yeah.
My
But
whole
also,
theory
like,
on it was when this past season, no competition because you're still trying to build his confidence up.
yeah,
And to have
exactly.
that guy sitting in the corner saying, all right, well, you screw up, I'm coming in. You screw up, I'm coming in, is not going to help his confidence at all. So now, this next year, now that he's got some confidence to him, bring in a guy. Who would have thought Daniel Whelan would be the punter over Pat O'Donnell this year?
Yep. And on top of that, like, you can just point like, look, we've always brought in an extra kicker into camp. So yeah, you've got to just kind of do it. But and even like this past game, like people are like, oh, like sign Crosby off the practice squad and stuff like that. But I'm like, in game, what are you doing? Like, oh, like you kick this and you kick that when they, yeah, it just, I don't know. Like, if if they had done it and Mason misses it, everyone would be saying like, everyone wouldn't be saying like, oh, that's okay, Mason's just old. It would be, why do you trust the ancient kicker kind of thing and stuff. So,
Damned if
like
you
you
do,
said,
damned if you don't.
yeah, and kind of to rewind that just that sequence before, so they get the big run by Jones. They draw the 49ers offside. Wilson converts the 1st and 5 into a first down. I liked them trying to take a shot play after that. I liked the play action first down play and good on the 49ers for covering it. But and actually, maybe the only thing is actually I kind of wish that they just straight dropped back through that one, because it felt like even before, because this is the like ice the game, milk the clock drive. I felt like a lot of their better pass plays were off of just straight dropbacks anyway, as opposed to play action, because it felt like on run action, the Niners secondary and even one of the linebackers would just be kind of hanging back anyway. So I thought that you kind of just play it straight and see if you get something. I did not like the second down run play. I get that you're trying to run the clock and all, but I felt like you're in the go zone, so just go. Like,
Well,
you got to try to score that touchdown.
that's why I said it's like he went completely away from the playbook that they were doing against the Cowboys back into his more conservative style of play call.
Yeah,
And that's not what you needed. You needed
yeah.
to do what you did against Cowboys. Just keep pounding it on.
Because even if you make the field goal, and I get that you probably kick it out, and and it did answer sort of the like, is Anders not capable of getting it into the end zone, blah blah blah, because they did do that later in the game, for most of the game. But maybe, and then you get into the whole like, if you score the field goal, like what, but you're still up only a touchdown and you're still relying on Barry's defense, which, like I said, kept you in the game, but at the moment you needed them to make a stop, it was like, oh, like they got to midfield pretty quick. Now they're gaining yards and chewing up some clock. And
And the one thing that I'm finding funny about Twitter 24 hours after the game is you have all these people jumping on Anders for missing the one kick, right? But now you're having all these apologists for Joe Barry on this stuff. It's like you've been riding on Joe Barry's ass all year for his shit play calls, but now you're not going to. And he needs to go. Yeah, you can't. And the excuses are, well, he's just the coach. He can't make the players play. It's his job to put the players into the position to make the plays.
my whole thing on that is, and everyone's like, oh, the players were tired. That's partly his fault.
Yeah.
Because when you don't call a more aggressive scheme to get off the field on 3rd and long, like Uglum has made the joke all season that, oh, 3rd and long, what could possibly go wrong? And it's like, when you don't get off the field on 3rd down, when you're okay getting run down the field for like, plays, drives that total into the teens every time, your defense is going to get tired. Quay and Jair both had to come out at times for IV, or Quay for an IV, because I think he went back to the locker room.
Yeah, they said cramps.
Jair had cramps because like he looked like, oh, I'm okay, I'm going back in kind of thing. But
no,
yeah,
it was
like,
he kind of retweaked the ankle on that
oh,
one.
okay. I thought because he drank water and then it was like, okay, I'm good kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I thought that
No,
he
no, Quay was cramps and he did go to the locker room for IV. Jair, I'm pretty sure, was just that he missed because he was kind of limping. So
right.
I think he misstepped and he was able to straighten himself out.
Right. But point aside, like, your defense is tired because you're okay playing 70, 80 snaps of defense a game. And like, that's the whole thing, is like, what is your scheme going to be? And the only way you can really, and that's why, like, in college, you see like Michigan did it this year, Georgia did it the last 2 years, Bama's done it in the past, where they're like, okay, like, we're gonna play the bend don't break scheme, but we're gonna play it more aggressive. But they can do that in college because you can rotate 20 bodies in on defense because your roster is, your home roster is like 100, for the big colleges that can carry enough scholarships, you can carry 100 whatever guys on your roster, and then your travel roster is 75 or 80 or whatever the hell the
Yeah.
rule
Well,
is.
that's why I say when they start talking about coaches coming from college to the pros, they're least likely to do that because they know they can build their own team. They know they have the players, they have like 100 players that they
Yeah.
can pick from. Whereas in the pros, you have to answer to an owner, you have to answer to a GM, you have to worry about salary cap, and you have to worry about low numbers on roster.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's just a matter of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But like the thing with Barry is he does the same thing every time, and then it's the meme, it's the Eric Andre meme of what happened, after he shoots the guy, right? Like, and it's like, yeah, you do the same thing over and over and over again, and you expect different results. Insanity. So
He's got to
like,
be gone. There is no way that they're going to be able to contend as long as they've got a guy like that as the
and I
defensive
tweeted it out after
coordinator.
the game. I said, if he's not gone, he's here as long as LaFleur is, because, and what I mean by that is, yeah, and I don't want it to be, because I prefer that Love and LaFleur like play out however long Love is here for,
Right, because we've
because
seen them succeed.
yeah, like LaFleur really seemed to get into a rhythm, and really the two seem to be on the same page so much better than we've seen in other ventures between LaFleur and his previous quarterback. But if he can't move past Barry, and if he doesn't, like I tweeted this too, is if he doesn't have the gumption to do everything that's necessary, I can't defend you. Like, you've got to be able to see what's wrong with this. And yes, you should have scored more. You should have made the kick, all that kind of stuff. But you were still winning with 4 minutes to go in the game, and you let the rope go because your defense couldn't get off the effing field. So you can make whatever excuses you want, but the big time defenses, you get off the field. Or, like I said, do or die. Do it or die quick. But that's the problem with Barry, is that he prefers the slow death, so you lose all the time down to the end, and you're left with, 67 seconds on the game clock kind of thing and all. So, and I know some people are still going on and like, oh, should LaFleur have called timeout and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, no, because it was 2nd and 1 or 3rd and 1 or something like that. And so it's like, so and so my whole thing with that is, you want the downs to reset, because that 40 seconds hypothetically is getting run off no matter what if you don't allow the score on the next play. Because if he doesn't, if he calls, if he doesn't, so if that sequence plays out where San Fran gets the first down and then he calls timeout there kind of thing, then, then now you have more timeouts, and it's like, okay, because then San Fran also, they have to be like, oh shoot, like we still have to score, so we can't totally run the clock out either kind of thing. So you're kind of playing mind games with them, where it's
Well,
like,
and it also puts up the conundrum, do you want less time and more timeouts, or do you want more time and less timeouts on that final drive?
exactly. So it's Schrodinger's timeout.
Well, there's the
And
title of your next article.
the timeout is dead. The timeout is always dead. um, but you just, I didn't have a problem with it. It's not like, um it's not like some of the ones from like earlier this season where you're kind of like, oh god, like why are we letting so much time run off the clock and stuff like that. I was okay with that one, because like I said, I've never liked calling timeouts on like something and one, because it's just kind of like, okay, like,
The only thing I have to do is I think LaFleur's clock management all game was kind of wonky. And not necessarily even towards the end, but just throughout the game, it seemed like it just something didn't line up with his clock management. And I don't know what it was, but it didn't feel right, and I can't really explain it without going back through all the film and all that.
I think what it is more than anything that you're thinking of is he just his offense operates at a slower pace regardless. And so and that's the thing is like everyone goes, "Oh my god, like Barry's defense it didn't allow too many, it's only 24 points, but it's like but you only had like 6 drives or something like that because your offense is chewing up like 6 minutes a drive and your defense is on the field for 6 minutes a drive or whatever kind of thing. And so, like, yeah, it looks like, when you just look at total points, but when you look at points per drive, it's like, oh, like, shit, that defense sucks kind of thing. So, it's all, you got to look at all the stats in confluence because they all that you can't just look at a single one anymore. You have to take everything into account. And like I was laughing because going into the final drive, Twitter will do its shit where it like just brings old tweets to the front kind of thing. And Christian Watson's dad is like, they can't block our interior pass rushers kind of thing. And then that final drive, everyone looked dead kind of thing. And, you had a couple instances of pressure, but you really saw, especially on the edges, I think you saw not having Inagbare active hurt them
And
towards
not activating Brenton Cox either, because you would have
I
think
think
that would
that was
at
a
least
special teams thing. I do think it's a special teams thing because
why.
Inagbare is kind of core on the special teams and
Yeah,
Banks
but
plays a lot of special teams.
they didn't activate Benny Sapp either, and his role was special teams.
Yeah, but I think that was more the secondary is healthier kind of thing and stuff.
Well,
Whereas
I
like,
get that,
yeah,
but it with the Ignagberry injury, you're already down a guy on the rotation of your pass rushers. What's his name? Keyshawn Banks hasn't
yeah,
played all season. At least Cox has been on roster and played all season, has played some during the season. We know he has the ability to get to the ball. You need to rotate more because the rotation is the best thing for you because Preston's getting up there. He's not able to take 100 snaps a game, blah blah blah, so on and so on. So I get the special teams need for it, but you do already have enough of your special teams guys on there that I think you could have easily activated Cox to rotate into that system to add that pressure and allow your other guys to get breathers more often.
yeah. It's a much more minor woulda, coulda, shoulda, but it's definitely
It
one
is,
that.
but it
But like I
but it
said, you
just
could kind of
it's
tell like by the end, the front four, like another Uglum joke is he tweets Barry's defense is not getting you any more stops kind of thing, and you could kind of see it on that final drive where um Purdy was able to like just get the amount of time he needed to get passes off on that final drive. And like guys were still getting push, but it was a step late, other like unlike it was earlier in the game. And okay, so I saw, people were like, where is Rashawn? And yes, he spent about a quarter and a half trying to speed rush, which was stupid. But also in between the first 49ers drive where almost everyone sacked Purdy on the last play before they punted, and the next drive where he long arms a guy into Purdy's lap, what the 49ers did is like, okay, we're going to just throw the ball quick kind of thing and we're going to live with it and stuff. And so I do need Rashawn to play with more power more often, just kind of junk the speed stuff. But also, that's one of those context things. And we saw Lucas have some success because he doesn't really have too many pass rush moves right now, but
no.
I can run through someone's face right now. And he did that a couple times, almost had a sack or two himself. So um, they're they're going to have a pretty good edge room this year. I think they're going to take one relatively early this season. Mostly because of the Inagbare injury and just because you do need that rotation, and you kind of saw why this season. I thought Wyatt played a really, I did kind of tell him, okay, shut up, Devontae, earlier in the week because he made the quote about like, oh, if you're in around Purdy's feet, he gets jittery, and it's like, okay, like Devontae, you've got to actually make those plays. And he did create some havoc, but also he missed a couple opportunities to finish on some plays. But also, I thought he played against the run about as well as he has in, especially in a big game. I thought he had one of his best run defense games in a while, so that was encouraging to see. And Kenny, so I've seen certain people, one who's in our draft, who's in Mafi's draft thread with us, who've kind of bagged on Kenny that he
Call him
doesn't
out.
deserve another
Just say it.
contract.
Say the
JJ,
name.
JJ, Kenny. Okay, and no, I'm not saying that he should reset the defensive tackle market again, because no, that's stupid. But should he get another contract from the Packers? Absolutely.
Oh, hell
Because
yeah.
one, he's 27 or some shit like that.
I think they
So
said at the end of the second contract he was going to be like 28.
yeah, so that's after next year. So he's 27 now, I think. And then and then on top of that, you can lower his hit by, you extend him another 3 years, let's say. So you're not like kicking the can so far in the future. But by that point, you're expecting, the new league revenue is coming in because the new TV deals are on and all that kind of stuff. And then and you need him. You saw it today. And all that, and this kind of goes back into the Aaron Jones thing of it all, where it's like, you can still get that Kenny Clark, but you need the other guys on the D line to play better. And I think you're going to get that from next season because Wyatt looked a year improved. You hope that the things that he needs to work on, because he took a leap in the creating pressure side of it. He took a leap in some of the splash plays, needs to get better at finishing, needs to get better, take another leap against the run. But you saw that Carl Brooks looks like a dude. Wooden looked like a guy they started to trust more as the season went on. Got to give
I
him props for
wonder
blocking the field goal.
with Wooden, I wonder if they make him drop like 5 pounds and stand him up instead of
Kind of
taking the guy
Daytona
in.
and kneel him, maybe.
Yeah.
At least on base downs. And and honestly, he might not need to lose weight because if you're just making him a base edge, he can play at 280, and then you just kick him inside and
Well, I
uh,
was just thinking if you drop him 5 pounds, he'd be around that 275 mark, and that's what Lucas and Rashawn both are.
mhm. And then you just let him play with his hand down like Lucas does a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So yeah. But that's where I think you could see them draft, like a Chris Jenkins or something, or like Byron Murphy or all. So I think that you could see another
Don't
D
put out
tackle
too many names. We'll save that for our draft stuff when it comes time for that.
just little tasters. But and Slayton, I think he's been banged up down the stretch, but I think he's really turned his game up. He's a guy that they might try to extend this offseason because 24, he's a 21 draft class guy. So they might try to extend him early to get him, on a more favorable deal kind of thing. So
So I have the list up right here, and we'll do more of our season review next week when we do our award show. But can you name the top 5 in sacks for the Packers without looking it up?
Rashawn,
Yep.
Preston,
Yep.
Kenny. Is it Kenny?
Yep.
Brooks.
Nope.
Oh,
Wait.
Okay. Wyatt's one of them, right?
Yep.
And then, okay, if it's not Brooks, then did Lucas overtake him?
If you want to go 1A, 1B, yeah, Lucas and Carl both had the same. But Kenny had a career year in sacks. He had 7.5 sacks. That's showing that now that they're putting players around him.
Yes, and like I said, that's my point. Is that you extend him? You don't give it we're not saying he's got to make 20 million a year again. You get him into that 12 to 15 rate. You make the guy feel good, but we need you back, Kenny. Kind of, we need you back, but we also need some help because, like you said, for the first time in his whole career, you've got guys around you, since really Mike Daniels was in the twilight of his Green Bay career, you've got guys we can place next to you who can take pressure off of you and that you'll get single blocked again kind of thing. And that's where I'm tying it into the Aaron Jones thing where it's like, instead of Kenny having to, early in his career, it's like, oh my God, Kenny Clark played 84% of the defensive snaps. Now he can play 55 to 65% of the snaps.
And they
And
can play him at a position that he's not out of, a fish out of water on.
yeah,
They don't need
where
him
he
as
was a
at nose.
where he was a good nose tackle, but now you have Slayton. Maybe you pick another guy who can also play nose. Maybe you just pick another. It really depends what they do. And the honest to God thing with Barry's defense is you don't need a true nose outside of Slayton because you're not in base that often anyway. You need guys who can defeat blocks. So, like, you just need another good defensive tackle, whether you stay with Barry or if you go to another defensive coordinator. So there's life there. I thought Quay had a solid game. I thought that a more creative defensive coordinator probably gets more out of him. You kind of mentioned it, like use him as like a Micah Parsons light kind of player. I say more light where you do want him in coverage more than the Cowboys use him in coverage, Parsons in coverage. And Quay is not the blitzer that Parsons is. Like, there aren't many guys that are. Like,
Right,
Parsons is like,
right. But he's got the ability. We've seen him flash it.
yeah,
So I think if they can refine him and start getting, because no, you don't want him to rush all the time, but I think if they refine him a little bit, he gets one more year into the system. I think he's really going to take that step towards,
yeah.
stardom.
And then in the secondary, they've got some dudes. They've got to revamp the safety room. I think you've got to bring back one of. I know they both made kind of shitty tackle attempts on the drive that ended with McCaffrey's touchdown, but I think you got to bring back one of Owens or Savage next season just to have someone in the room who you can throw out there. Um, I guess the good thing is between Savage, Owens, and Ford, they should all be some kind of cheap to bring back next season. And then you've got some players at corners like Ja will be back. I don't give a shit what anyone says. You need guys like that. He's showed it these last two playoff games. Like, he was playing well on a bad wheel. I want
And
that
we've
guy on my
said it
team.
before. Carrington is just basically Jair without the money.
Yep, exactly. So I do not care. You need weirdo, like we said. Ask ask Leroy Butler why the Packers lost Super Bowl 32 because we traded Wayne
It was
Simmons.
rigged.
That too, but we traded Wayne Simmons, and Leroy he had to play over the tight end as opposed to Wayne Simmons just um ragdolling Shannon Sharp. So keep Jair. Valentine looks like he's gonna be something good. Honestly, we'll get into this more in the offseason, but you see what they might do something with Stokes. Valentine looks like he's going to at least be a special teams player, if not someone who can contribute. And you're going to
I
draft
could
another
see
corner or
him
two.
being a better version of like a Jarrett Bush,
Yeah,
where he's gonna
he can
make his
actually
money
play.
on, yeah, he's gonna make his money on special teams, but he's somebody that you could trust to go in on occasion to play some
Yeah,
snaps on
he needs
defense.
some safety support, but he's not going to get pantsed every time out there. He's a solid dude. So yep. Like we said, this defense has talent. It's all about LaFleur recognizing that Barry is not identifying, utilizing, whatever word you want to put with it, maximizing the talent that's on his side of the ball. Whereas LaFleur, I think, did that with the offense. Almost all the complaints we had with the offensive line, the receivers, the tight ends, a lot of it got ironed out over the course of the season when a lot of those guys just needed to either get healthy on the O line or get experience and reps as receivers. I think that played out, and LaFleur's um, got to make the move at defensive coordinator to get someone who's going to get more out of that side of the ball. But those are topics that I know we're going to dip into as we get into the offseason. Joe, final thoughts on the season? Fulfilling? I know there's a sour taste left in the mouth, but to me, I'm pretty optimistic and fulfilled going forward. How about you? I think you're muted.
I am optimistic going forward. I think we've seen that we do have a QB of the future. I know Rappaport came out with the big tweet that they are going to be looking to discuss a longer contract for Jordan in the spring. It's like, no shit, Sherlock. They have to wait that long to talk to him about it, and of course they're going to do it because he showed he can play.
Yeah. I
But
think the rule is that because he signed an extension last year, he can't sign one until he hits the 1 year anniversary of the last one he
yeah,
signed, or something like that. There's some sort of semantics like that.
right. But it's like Ian tweeted the friggin' no shit Sherlock type tweet that yeah, we all know that's happening.
That's not the
But
tweet we're looking for out of 1265 Lombardi.
so but yeah, going forward, this team's special. There are going to be a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made in the off season. Of course, we're going to be talking about it. I don't think we're going to give our MVP LVP of this game because we're the programming note going forward, and I'm going to surprise Mike with this a little bit, just a little bit, is next week we're going to do our awards for the season, and then I think we're going to take a 2 week break. That way we can reset everything and get ready to start doing our draft coverage so we can start getting plans of, guests to bring in, what we're going to be talking about, and all that. Of course, we're going to keep everybody in the loop on everything, but, you know, this this was a fun season to talk about. There were ups and downs all through the season, and I know Miranda did the article on it, and we've all kind of joked about it. But this was basically, we could name it the house money season because it wasn't expected to do anything, but they still did better than what people figured they were going to do. So I just it's going to be a fun off season, and I'm glad there's not going to be a ton of drama this off season compared to the last 3 or 4 off seasons. So yeah, I going forward, it's going to be fun.
Yep, sounds like a good one. And we're gonna tie a nice bow on this one. It's been our pleasure to cover this team for the 2023 season, but now we turn our sights towards 2024 in the future. Um, Please follow our Twitter accounts at Kawano Mike, at Iowa underscore Joe 86. The podcast is at Ohana underscore Packers. Make sure that you're following the show's Twitter account to be eligible for the drawings. Please check out the website, ohanapackers.org. Like Joe said, Miranda put up her post on how playing with house money.
Oh,
Sanjay, Joey. Oh,
I was just going to say we have a couple of announcements to also make. Sanjay Murthy of the
Freezer
Freezer
podcast.
podcast is going to be doing some writing for the website. Hopefully he'll get something out during draft time and all that. And we've also we're expanding the OPE network, as I've been calling it, and we've brought on the Mac and Cheese podcast with Mary and Angry Packer. They're going to be doing their own thing on YouTube, but we're going to start distributing them through our, distribution. So you're going to get the audio version through us, and you're going to still get the video version through them. So they're going to be flying the Oak brand for a while. So check them out. Keep checking us out. If you got, and Michael mentioned a little bit of this while he finishes his outro, but let us know what you think, what we need to work on, all that good stuff. But hey, 2024 is already looking bright.
Yep, exactly. And as we've kind of mentioned before, we're going to be going to fan polls on Friday fan polls because now that the Packers are no longer playing games, our weekly pods are going to take a little bit of a amorphous format because we're going to be hitting the topics that you guys want to hear about. So we'll put out potential options for the pods. It'll actually be for the next week out just because we're already going to have subject matter for the one we're recording, but we're going to let the
Well,
subscribers
this
have some input.
week's we'll give a little tease of it, but this week's poll will be who you think the MVP of the season was, and we'll give you some options, and then of course we'll give you another option, but that'll be so we can put that in as the listener voted MVP on top of our awards for next week.
Yep. So keep an eye out for all of that. Please follow the podcast on your favorite apps. Please give us a like and a subscribe if you're enjoying what you're hearing. As Joe mentioned, we take any and all feedback, positive or negative. So please comment on how you're feeling about the content we're putting out, because we want to make sure that what we're putting out is what you want to look out for. Like we said, it was a bummer of an ending for the 2023 team, but we appreciate the fight and the gumption that they displayed the back half of the season. And it's got us really excited for the 2024 season as that comes down the pipeline. Keep it tuned in to Ohana Packers edition. We're going to have all of the offseason, from free agency, coaching changes, draft season, and preseason under wraps. So keep it tuned here. And just one more time for the 2023 season, we want to wish you a go Pack Go and aloha.